This video outlines the first of 7 steps for building a Fusion Pro template, defining a data source. The data file provides the fields that are inserted directly into frames or into rules. Each record in the data source will display the corresponding values literally when inserted into frames, or they are used to trigger some facet of a rule. The Data Definition Wizard opens automatically when a PDF has been exported from InDesign, as demonstrated in the previous video. Otherwise, to begin the process, go to Fusion Pro, Data Definition, Wizard. The Data Definition Wizard offers 3 options. Specified data source definition allows for an existing data file to be selected, such as an Excel or flat delimited file, within which the first row contains all the field names, and each subsequent row or record contains each value related to the fields in those columns. Create New Flat File provides a menu in Fusion Pro to define each of the fields, the field type, corresponding values, and finally each record. Creating the data source is ideal for building the template prior to getting access to the actual data. Provided that the field names that will be in the final data source are known, creating the data file allows for sample data to be used for testing, but then when the actual data source is available, it can be swapped out to complete the composition. The Import Data Source from Another Document option allows for Fusion Pro's def file to be used, which would have been established in the creation of a previous template, but is now being reused for a new template. Importing a data source is a great option when building a series of templates or another template with similar principles, because the def file brings in the fields, rules, and resources used in the previously built document, saving the first 3 setup steps in the Fusion Pro process. In a lot of cases, the source of data will come from another application where the data is managed. That data would need to be exported into a format compatible for Fusion Pro. So for this first example, I will specify a data source and click Next. Select the data source format from the list of options. Tab or comma delimited files, like a TXT or CSV, would be considered flat file delimited, which is what I have, a CSV. Click Next. Click the File Browse button to navigate to and select the data source file. At the bottom of the menu, there is an option to specify the encoding to be used if the data source contains non-Unicode characters. Once defined, click Next. Select the appropriate delimiter for the file from the drop-down. Make sure the option for first row contains field names is checked, and click Next. The data definition summary will appear, demonstrating the settings and showing the first 2 records, with the field name and value being displayed, and the field name and value. If the summary shows as a run-on sentence or a jumble of words, the delimiter may have been specified incorrectly. When it's looking for a comma, yet it's not finding it, each of the values will display, including the field names, until it finds a comma. If this is the case, click the back button and specify the correct delimiter. A very important note here. Whenever a data source is specified, every field is assumed to be a text field. So any graphic fields must be designated during or after the data definition process. Before clicking the Finish button, you can make adjustments within the data definition summary by clicking Input Options. If you've already clicked Finish, you can still make adjustments to the field type from the Fusion Pro menu. Go to Data Definition and Input Options. In the Input Options menu, click Edit Fields. Select any field to be changed, then click the Edit button. Select Graphic as the field type and then click OK. In this example, none of the fields are graphic, so I will click Cancel. Continue adjusting any other fields that are graphic in the data source for the template being built. Once back at the data definition summary, click Finish to complete specifying the data source. In this second example, we'll create a new flat file. In Fusion Pro's Create Data File menu, enter the first field name for the document. Select the field type. Next, enter the value for that field. For the field first name, I'll be adding sample data to test the template. Once done, click Add Field at the top right. Enter the name for the next field, select the type, and enter a value. Continue adding each of the fields as needed. When creating a graphic field, the value will be the file name of the image, including the file extension. Once all the fields have been created, let's add a new record. Click the Add button in the record area near the bottom. The new record will show the same field names and types, but the values column will be blank. Enter the corresponding values for each field using new sample values, then continue adding records as needed. Once all the records and values have been added, click Save or Save As. At this point, either of these buttons will do the same thing. Once saved, the data definition wizard will close and the PDF will display in Acrobat with the Fusion Pro frames appearing as white boxes with dashed lines around the edges. The final option reviewed will be importing a data source from another document, which looks for the def file that Fusion Pro generates in the build process. The def file defines the fields, resources, and rules, although there is no data attached to it. So when using this option, I recommend copying the def file and either include the same data source from the original template or point to a new data source. Just make sure the field names are the same as the original. Select the Import option and click Next. The File Browse menu will open to navigate to and select the def file. When you click Open, if the original data source is found, the data definition summary will appear. If using a new data source, as in this example, an error will indicate the data source cannot be found. Click OK. Then click back on the data summary and back one more time to browse to the new data source. Click Next, specify the correct delimiter, click Next to get back to the data source summary, verify that the first two records have values, then click Finish. From here, you'll be able to see that the resources should be connected. If not, you'll have to remap to those resources. And the rules should also be available. This would complete the first 3 steps in the Fusion Pro template creation process. Next, we'll learn about the Fusion Pro workspace within Acrobat. That concludes this video demonstrating each option for defining a data source in Fusion Pro.